Hello Kerbals, and welcome to part 2 of Mining the Man. The last episode we sent a scanning probe in orbit around the Man in a polar orbit to scan for the ores that are there, and we found quite a bit. However, to be sure, we sent a smashing probe, or impactors actually, to impact on the surface of the Man so we can find out what material is thrown off and find out what is there. So now we know that we can mine the Man, we can get ores from there. We have to build a space station first. A station that we can launch stuff down, land stuff from, and bring it back up to the station and process the ore or something like that. And you see by here, I've loaded up the stock space station core. And the reason I've done that is because I don't want to carry on building all my own. I thought, why not use this? It's there, I've never used it before, so why not use it? Okay, so what we're going to do here, this is going to be our space station. We're going to set this up into orbit around the Man. We need a single surveyor. This is something I pre-built. By the way, these crafts are going to be available for you to download. You can use them to your heart's content, adjust them, do whatever you want to them. Just nothing cruel to the Kerbals, please. Anyway, first things first, we have to get this up into orbit, get this on the way to the Man, and get this into orbit around the Man. So let's add a fairing, because we want to avoid the aerodynamic troubles we'd otherwise have. Launching this up into orbit. And, a rocket now. So, a fuel tank. And a poodle engine. That's perfectly fine for getting this into orbit around the Man. It'll be enough for us to get to the Man, get us into orbit around the Man. But we'll have to ditch that stage at some point because it's going to be a space station or a rocket. We don't want that hanging on the space station because that's actually connected to one of the docking ports. And don't forget your solar panels so you have power while you're doing this. Right, let's add a decoupler and skip to the rest of the build. Okay, I'm going to be showing the most important things about. Right, separatrons. Because these tanks are huge, they're not going to be boosted away by the decoupling force of those decouplers. So we staged these rockets at the same time as the decouplers, and you see here I'm angling them away. If you watch my tutorial on how to build a space station, when I was putting a fuel tank up to the space station, those separatrons were centered on that, pointing at the middle tank and caused overheating. And also when I added boosters by here, I found those separatrons are going to be pointing at them. That'll cause more overheating, so point them up. Hopefully they won't cause that much damage. However, I didn't realize the bottom ones of the separatrons will cause damage, or at least cause some overheating. Also, with every build you do not be afraid to overstrut everything. Because the more struts you have means the much more stable your rocket is, making it much more easily to get up into orbit. And a little tip, use these single girders to prop out anything that, where you have to get struts over. You can see here I'm connecting the strut from bottom to top. However, it does sometimes pose a problem like here. Things are still in the way. I tried restrutting it, as you can see by here. But however, it's still not working. I accidentally though clicked on the girder, reconnected it, and all the struts were there fine. What was going on? I don't know, but it worked. Anyway, this is going to be called Man Station 1 for the time being. We need a good name. So if you have any suggestions, I still haven't decided what to call the series yet. I'll have to go back, rename all the series once I have an idea. Think of something funny. Perhaps an acronym or something along those lines, I don't know. Something funny. Anyway, here we are for our launch. But I want to do something different for this launch. I want to use something called launch windows, which NASA does, where you launch at exact moments that you need to get to where you need to go. And, we've targeted the Man, and if you see in the bottom right, you've got intercept angle from the Kerbal Engineer Redux mod. Once that is 0, you need to be burning for the man. So to do this visually, make sure the man is almost going to come over the horizon from the KSC, from the launch pad, and if you launch from there, you should be able to get up into space, and then rather than getting into orbit, you can boost straight for the man. So that's what we're going to do now. And away we go. And we have liftoff. We have cleared the tower, Houston, or KSC, whatever. Anyway, with this design, you're going to find that it's a bit hard to control, so keep your hands on the controls, make sure you keep it on that yellow marker so you don't flip over. And also note with this design, those Separatrons, when they separate, they are going to cause some heat damage to the side boosters, but only the side ones, because as soon as we get rid of the other two, we'll find that the center rocket is fine. Okay, you see I'm having a bit of trouble keeping in control, but as soon as we get over 30 kilometers, we're fine. There you go, no heat damage, no heat boxes on our rocket. Right, all we have to do now is get this into orbit. So let's kill our thrust by here, because we're up to 100 kilometers. We're going to dock with it. We're going to dock this with the... No, we're not going to dock this with the station. We're going to get this up into orbit around the man. What am I on about? And jumping ahead in the video. Right, now we add a maneuver node. Straight away, as soon as the man comes over the horizon for our rocket, add a maneuver node and burn straight for the man. As you see, we have our intercept. This has worked first time for me. I didn't have to go back and re-record this. Anyway, setting up our final periapsis, get it down to, well, 70 will do fine. That's the orbit I plan to take around the man. So now doing the burn and discarding and fairing, revealing our rocket. Also note with this design, the burn times for the last stage was slightly less than the stage we have now. So you may have to manually, like I did here, I clicked off the maneuver node, still pointing in the same direction as the maneuver node, so we're going to get the intercept. But we're going to manually put our orbit correctly, burn it correctly. And if you have trouble clicking on a tab, get everything out the way. The orbit lines, get them out the way so you can click on just the tab and have it just up on its own, so you can read the height up. Okay, so yeah, that'll do fine. We need to do some alterations to our orbit because we need to get an inclination. And also don't forget those solar panels on the station. This will be available to download, as I said. Yes, I already said it, to download and use as your own learning experience, I suppose, and you can alter it yourself. Right, if you double click on any celestial body you're heading towards, it'll show you the orbit you're going to have around that. That makes it easier for planning. Right, I've killed the warp here because we're going to add a maneuver. As I said, we're going to go into an inclination because there is cheddar or ore on the northern pole of the man and on the equator. Now it's not directly over the north, so we're going to, the inclination that's going to be at, well, about roughly this angle. I only guessed that at this point, so I thought we could do slight alterations when we get there. Although you'll find that as this maneuver shows, it takes less than 20 meters per second, or about that. But when you do an inclination change close to a planet, you're traveling so fast at the speed of your orbit that it's going to take a lot more fuel to do so. And here I'm just adjusting the height of the orbit, because adjusting the inclination adjusts your orbit height as well. So something to bear in mind as well. However, once we do our orbit burn, I find out something. Right, we got a nice perfect 70 kilometer orbit, and making sure that everything's fine, I figure out how to get the ore stuff up, the visualizations of the scanning from the probe, and you see our inclination is not correct. So I set up another maneuver with the correct inclination, but again it adjusts our orbit height. So when you do an inclination change, you have to change your orbit height as well in that same burn. Okay, so that looks like it's going to go over that red stuff over there, which is our ore. And do slight burns there. I think that'll be enough. It's not a near perfect, but it's what we need. Oh yeah, by here I burn, so we're going to crash into the man. This is just so I can get rid of that boost stage. Now we do have a rocket from the surveyor on here. I didn't want to use that fuel, by the way. But we'll have to get this space station back into orbit. There's no probe on that rocket stage. So if you use this, bear that in mind, you can take it to the VAB, add a probe core to it, and just deorbit it without having to try to deorbit the station at the same time with two kerbals on it. Right, let's transfer Mildeth and Gennigar to the habitat module and see what their life is like. Okay, she does not look happy. I don't think she wants to be here. However, Gennigar is staring off into space, like every other male Kerbal. Right, now this won't be a space station without extra modules. So the first one I want to set up is a crew habitat module. And this isn't for the space station crew, this is for the crews that we're going to be sending down to the man in shifts. So they can, well, take in shifts really on the man, earn their money, and come back to Kerbal. So they're going to go transferring from Kerbal to the station, and from the station to the surface of the man. At least that's what I plan. I plan to do sort of crew rotations, like one crew there, one crew back, while we transfer another crew down again, and, well, something like that. Anyway, with that built, we need something to get everything back and forth. I decide to my first iteration of the space tug, or the man tug I'm going to call it. You're going to see here, note by here I'm adding these struts. They're more for show. I thought they'd help for the stability of the spacecraft as well, but apparently even though they're clipping into those fuel tanks, they're not actually connected. And that'll be shown once we get this up into orbit, or once we get this to the man as well, that they flop about a bit. So if you're using this, add some struts. I actually may add some struts before I allow this to be downloaded from the web. Okay, so we're setting up everything here, making sure we have enough RCS control. Don't forget the RCS tanks, yeah, that's plenty. Nice little hideaways under them girders. And the batteries. Okay, so I think this is set up. All we need to do is add some decals, like lights. You don't really need lights. I've downloaded a mod called I forgot the name of that, light illumination mod thing, where it makes the dark areas of Kerbal brighter. That's just because it makes it easier to do videos, so you can see what's happening. By here, I'm just messing around with fuel tanks, by the way, just to see how much delta V I'd have. And anyway, that mod allows you everything to become brighter, but if you haven't got that mod, add some lights. So if you come to docking on the dark side, you can illuminate those docking ports and, well, see what you're doing. Anyway, we'll call this man tug, save it, and coming into normal time video, I'm going to show you how to do a sub-assembly of this. Right, you can't do a sub-assembly of the main part. So if you add another probe core, I decided at this point to add a reaction wheel, makes it easier to turn your spacecraft. Add the rocket back. Now, bring up the sub-assemblies. Click on the probe core you just added. Click in sub-assemblies. And it's just a matter of naming and saving. You can use this then for anything you want. Add it to any spacecraft you want, and it'll be perfect. But now we need to get this up into space. First things first, this is going to go to the space station. No, not the one around the man, the one that's in orbit around Kerbal. In fact, it's the same space station from my building a space station tutorial. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, go watch it. It's actually one of my popular series at the moment. Not that I have many series, to tell you the truth, Okay, so adding all that fuel tank, I don't show it here, because I do this quick build of a launcher, but I add some Separatrons to that fuel tank. So once that fuel tank is empty, that's going to be filling the fuel tank on the space station, or at least partially. Then we can use those Separatrons to deorbit it, so we don't have space junk floating around the space station. Right, here we are. We added Separatrons to our rockets. We limited the thrust of our SRBs for some daft reason, because I find that the liquid engines run out first before the SRBs. I didn't think they were slow burning, those SRBs. Learn something new every day. Isn't that a motto of some kind? I don't know. Anyway, we do a sub-assembly of this, the 80-ton launcher, because that is in fact what that is lifting up into orbit. And off we go into space and leaving below. I don't know, I'm not good at poetry, but anyway, you see the liquid engines there run out before the solid rocket boosters, so the only thing I can do is mid-staging as possible. Okay, now the SRBs run out and we get blown up by our thrust. We can now get into orbit. Okay, so with this tag, the probe core is upside down. So that means when you're controlling this, the controls are going to be upside down. And for some reason, when I try to click and control it, it seems to rotate. I have a good clue about that. I checked it, there's no torque on this rocket. It's all working fine. Perhaps it's because I didn't add struts to the structure. As you saw, the rockets bent as I was thrusting. Anyway, getting this to dock. If you don't know how to dock, there's docking tutorials, and that I've got a docking tutorial, and the space station tutorial has docking. There's a slight docking tutorial as well on part 2. Right now we transfer the fuel across to the space station, and I decide to deorbit it. It's not working. For some reason, it must be a bug or something. Add an extra stage with nothing to in it, and then the staging works correctly. But now it's for a habitat module. This is what we need to get to the manned space station. So a quick video, quick cutscene to get it into orbit and dock it to the space station. And by the way, I got Manmore on that, on the module, which is cool actually, because well, his name's Manmore. What else can I say? And who else do we have? Jolene. Jolene. I can't sing for my life. Anyway, getting this up and to connected to our space tug, our mun tug. Losing train of thought, sorry. We boost for the moon. For the mun. And same thing, just boost for the man as normal when it comes over the horizon, and double click on the moon so we can set up our maneuver. Right, you can see here, I need to set up this maneuver so it comes close to that space station as we approach. This will make it easier and uses a lot less fuel rather than doing it when we get closer to the man. So shift that maneuver road around 170 kilometers orbit. Okay, intercept. Right, now using the radial boost and the prograde and retrograde, you can adjust your orbit to nearly get an intercept. Now do note that the moon will rotate as you're heading towards it. So the orbit of the space station as well in relation to may rotate. I realized this, so what I decided to do was bring the orbit out slightly and we'll do correction burns as we approach. Now whether they'll work or not, I don't know. But if you can get the close as you can, further out you are doing your maneuver, the more fuel you will save. I cannot say that enough because sometimes I forget, I do maneuver late, and it takes a lot more Delta V. See, because we're doing this maneuver now, and by the way, I used control from here on the docking ports, rather than using the probe course, so I could point the rocket in the correct direction. As I'm doing here. Oh, that's cool. So a handy tip. Also, I suppose I could have gone back to the design and rotated that probe core around so it would be pointing in the correct direction. Ah, the things you forget. Anyway, now we're going to burn for the man, and we're using the same amount of Delta V as we would get into the man, and doing that inclination change as well. And keep an eye on that orbit, make sure you get what you need. That looks pretty good. So let's go there. Right. Checking out, see what would happen if we do our circularization. And we're out of phase with our orbit. So what you're going to have to do, add a maneuver earlier on. As I said, we're going to have to do correction burns here and there. And side on is no good, so what you're going to have to do is line up that orbit you're trying to intercept. That'll make it a lot easier for you to do your intercept. Now the worst case scenario is that you'd have to get close to that orbit and you will have to do an inclination change when you get into orbit around the man, as we're doing here. But this is the end of the episode. Find out in the next time where we will dock to the space station, and let me know if you like this video. If you did like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more of this and you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button and subscribe to my channel. I have great other tutorial videos you want to see there, and if you want me to do a certain tutorial, ask. I haven't got much time at the moment, but maybe soon, maybe soon. Anyway, thanks for watching guys, I will see you next time. Trust me, I'm an engineer.